Well, how good is it to gather online, hear great content to build the church? It's really is an honor to have all of you joining from all sorts of churches around the world for Church Now and Church Next. And I hope to remind you at the end of this talk, again, about the Global Leadership Summit. It will be in North America in August and then all over the world. And I really do encourage you to bring your teams, bring your spouses, bring your volunteer leaders in the church, because I believe with all of my heart that everyone wins when the leader gets better. Jesus was the greatest leader who ever lived, and we can learn from him and we can lift up his name to bring more people into his kingdom. I want to close out our online time together and just tell you this. I've been in ministry now for 30 years. I've had the honor of leading Life Church for 25 years. So you could say I've seen some stuff, right? I've seen some stuff. And I ain't never seen as much stuff as I've seen in the last year. Amy and I were at a pastor's conference and talking to pastors, and the volume of pain and discouragement and disorientation, it's impossible to describe to you. People don't know which way is up. They don't know where their churches are. They don't know where they stand with people. And there was more of a sense of hopelessness and confusion and disorientation than I've ever seen in the history of my leadership. And so what I want to do in this session is tell you with all of my heart, with everything in me, without any hesitation, with the deepest integrity that I have, I want to tell you that I am completely optimistic about the role of the church, the future in the church, and tell you why I'm optimistic about the church, and more so today than I ever have been before. Let's talk about the good news and the bad news. Which do you want first? What do you want first? What do you want first? I'm gonna give you the good news first. Okay. Good. The good news is first. The good news is this, that as pastors, whatever you're leading, the next time we experience a global pandemic, racial tensions, social unrest, the explosion of the cancel culture, political division in an election year, the next time we experience all that, we will be prepared. We've got a little bit of experience that none of us had before. The bad news is right now our world is a mess. And people are hurting and they're depressed and they are afraid, and so many people are hopeless. And I'm convinced that it's going to take decades before we fully understand the toll that this complicated season is taking on people. There's the economic impact, especially on the poor all over the world. There's the threat of mental health and spiritual health and the cost to marriages and relationships. We know that the depression rate is soaring and that tragically, suicides are increasing, especially amongst the younger generation. Porn consumption, which was always a problem, is up. Substance abuse is up. Domestic violence is up. And I want to start by saying this takes a toll on us as spiritual leaders. During normal times, it's difficult to lead as a pastor. Now, it's so complicated, and you know this. If you don't open up your church, you've got no faith, pastor, you're caving into the government. If you do open up your church, you're risking people's lives. You're careless. Then you've got all the complications about people's opinions about the vaccine and about the masks and so on. It's incredibly complicated and can be so discouraging for spiritual leaders all over the world. So what I want to do today is I'm just going to reveal my cards. I want to bring some hope. And I'm going to tell you the 5 reasons why I'm more optimistic than I ever been for the role and the mission of the bride of Christ that we call the church. Why am I more optimistic? 5 reasons. Number 1 is personal, and that is because God used the church to change my life. God used the church to significantly transform my life. And I'm gonna try to give you just the short list of some of the events that happened in my life because of the church. The first thing, when I was 5 or 6 years of age or so, my mom told me that we went to a communion service and I knelt down, and after communion, I told her that I felt like I was supposed to be a pastor. Who does that at the age of 5 or 6? I remember then as a teenager at youth group feeling drawn to God, drawn by His Spirit, wanting to know Him, but yet not completely knowing what to do. When I was a senior, and this sounds kind of weird, I was the president of my youth group, and as the president of my youth group is when I realized I probably wasn't a Christian, because they asked me to pray over an event, and I recognized I didn't know how to pray. When I went to college, I fell into a lot of sin. How many of you did that in college? Yeah. How many of you know sin can be fun for a little while? It can be fun for a while. If you don't raise your hand, either you didn't do it right, or you're lying, one or the other. And I fell into sin, and somebody gave me a little Bible, a free Gideon Bible, and I started reading the Bible, and my life was transformed in Ephesians chapter 2 when I read that you're saved by grace and not by works. And you know what I did? I just went to church by myself. I don't know why, but I just went to church. I went to church, and I made new friends that I needed in church. Before I was a Christian, I thought everybody was a Christian. Like, I thought everybody in my little Oklahoma world was a Christian. After I became a Christian, I thought none of those people were Christians. And I met some Christian friends, and I started to spiritually grow, and I was discipled and started to become more like Jesus in the church. When I was in the church, a guy I didn't know gave me a Bible with my name engraved on it. It was a whole Bible, not just a New Testament like the free one I got, given to me by somebody at the church. I heard about Amy, and from someone in the church, they said you should go out with her, and I did. Our first date was a Bible study at her church. We started growing together spiritually, and we felt called to go into ministry in the church. I actually proposed to her, guess where? At the church. We did our wedding preparation and our wedding vows in the church. I preached my first sermon in the church. I was called by God to start Life Church, and this is when it got really fun, in a little 2-car garage for 25 years. My closest friends, my fellow spiritual warriors, have been in the church. I've had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, all in the church. All 6 of my children came to faith in Christ through the church. We're all baptized in the church. Listen to me, they know who they are in Christ because of the church. They were raised in the church. My 3 oldest daughters, they all married 3 boys that they met. Where do you think they met them? All in church. All 3 boys happen to be on my staff in the church, where I can watch over them and make sure they're godly men and stay doing what they're supposed to do. What I want you to understand is this, that everything that's meaningful in my life, it revolves around the church. And this is not because I'm a pastor, it's because I'm a follower of Christ. And what I'm guessing is because you're here today, chances are you have a similar story, that your life is different because of the work of the Spirit of God through His bride called the church. One of the reasons why I'm so optimistic is because that God has always transformed lives in the power of the community of the church. It's personal to me. It's personal to me. The Spirit of God changes lives through the church. The second reason I'm optimistic is because Jesus said, I will build the church. And the interesting thing is, the church has always endured. Think about it. Jesus is the one who said, I will build my church. The very first person to mention the church in all the Bible was Jesus. You may know the story. He was with his disciples. He gave them a little pop quiz. He said, who do people say that I am? And they had all sorts of answers. Some say John the Baptist, Elijah, Jeremiah, one of the prophets. He looked at Peter and said, Peter, who do you say I am? And Peter said, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And what did Jesus say? Jesus said, on this rock, then what did he say? He said, I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Jesus said that he would build the church, and the church has endured. Would you pause with me for just a moment and think about what the church has endured? Go all the way back to the persecution of the first century, when followers of Jesus were stripped naked and hung on a cross just like Jesus, publicly shamed, when they were burned at the stakes, when they were covered in animal skins and fed to lions in the middle of coliseums for entertainment purposes. Think about what they endured. Think about the contemporary persecution that Christians experience today. Even in our lifetime, a line of brave Jesus followers kneeling down and being beheaded on a beach. The church has endured. Think about the moral failures and the corruption and the heresy and the scandals in the church, and the church has endured. Think about the rise of humanism, and think about the threats of the wars in our nation, the Civil War. Think about World War I, think about World War II, and the church has endured. Pandemics, people say, well, these are unprecedented times. Let me just tell you, honestly, there's nothing new. Pandemics are nothing new. They swept through the world before, and the church not only survived, but the church thrived. You go through the list of the pandemics, a very short and partial list. In the second century, a 15-year-long pandemic took the lives of 1/3 of the Roman Empire, 1/3 of the population. The bubonic plague, 25 million lives or so, tragic. The Black Death, they estimate between 100 million and 200 million lives lost. The flu pandemic in 1918, just a century ago, 20 to 50 million deaths, depending on who's estimating it. You know what the church did? Do you know what the church did? When the world ran out, the church ran in. And there were brave followers of Jesus who risked their lives to show and serve people in the name of Jesus. And the church didn't die. And the church didn't stop meeting. And the church didn't die. The church thrived. And they continue to meet, just like what God did. Who is Jesus? He is the incarnation. He is God in the flesh. God didn't shout his love from heaven. What did he do? He showed his love on earth. And the church has endured, and the church will continue to endure. I'm really optimistic. You have no idea how much faith I have. I believe in the church because God used the church to change my life. I believe in the church because Jesus said he would build it. The third thing is this: I believe, and I'm optimistic because the resistance, disappointments, and the pain, it's made us stronger. What you've endured in the last year, 18 months, it's made you stronger. Pastor Mike, when we go to the gym and we work out together, we don't get just strong on this part of the movement, we get strong on the resistance. It's the resistance that makes us, it's the resistance that increases our strength. Think about the devil. What was his plan? What did he want to do? He wanted to divide churches. He wanted to kill their finances. He wanted us to shut the doors and never open them again. And what do we have today? Let me promise you, if your doors are open now or if they're open in the future, what you're gonna have is a different type person that gathers. When they gather, they have what I call first generation passion. When you're starting a ministry, there's a different type of person that shows up when you got nothing. They come with a hunger, they come with a drive, they come with an energy, they come with a something special. And what you're gonna have is when they do gather, they come with something different. I'm gonna tell you right now, this season is clearing out what I call consumeristic Christianity. It's cleaning it out. It's clarifying the mission of the church. It's helping us to recognize that we don't just go to a church to meet our needs. We're not church shopping. We are not spiritual consumers. What are we? We're the body of Christ. We are spiritual contributors. The church does not exist for us. We are the church and we exist for the world. Oh, but it's getting so dark out there and it's so bad and we're so divided and there's so much, and they hate us and there's persecution and the world's growing darker. As the world grows darker, guess what? Our light shines brighter. What is happening? I promise you that even though it's painful, God's gonna do something in you. And you're gonna come out on the other, if you still believe, you're gonna believe with an unshakable faith. It's cleaning out the church. It's making us stronger. The fourth thing that I want you to know is this: I'm optimistic, and I hope you believe when I tell you I'm optimistic. Number 4 reason is because the time is ripe for accelerated innovation. The time is ripe. Anytime there's a disruption, it does create all sorts of problems, but it also creates all sorts of opportunities, and we're seeing them right now. What's funny to me is back in 2006, to the best of our knowledge, we created the first church online. It wasn't just a streaming, but it was a church community. And there were so many pastors who hated that and criticized and said, that's bad theology and that's not the church. Well, when all the doors closed, suddenly everybody became a believer in church online. And what's happening right now is, if you've got spiritual eyes to see, you're gonna discover new evangelistic tools and you'll find new front doors to the church. What I wanna encourage you to do, pastors and leaders, is don't confuse the model and the mission. Do not get so attached to the model. Well, this is how we do church, and this is right, and all that other, that's not real church. No, don't. Andy Stanley says it this way. He says, date your model, marry your mission. Do not marry the model. Mission is the what, model is the how. The what doesn't change, the how must change. I love the way Jesus empowered the disciples before he ascended into heaven. What did he do? He said, go into all the world, preach the gospel, make disciples, baptize in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. He gave them the what, he gave them the where, he did not give them the how. He did not tell them how, because the what never changes, but the how does. Be careful not to criticize what you don't understand. When someone starts doing church in a new way, don't be critical and find reasons to say why that doesn't work and that's not real. Instead, find reasons to say, could it work? Is it real? What I want to do is I always want to be a student, not a critic. I would rather come in learning and asking than knowing it all. And here's my bet. There are some of you right now, there's some 20-something-year-old right now, and you got an idea. And everyone else around you may not think it's gonna work. The time is ripe. Now is ripe. And I would encourage you to take some risks, to venture out. This could be one of the most pivotal times for us to continue what we've done for years and do something more and do something innovative and reach more people than we ever were before. I'm so optimistic. You have no idea how much faith I have for the church. The fifth reason, and perhaps the most important, number 5, is that people are searching right now. People are searching, and the church offers the hope, the healing, and the belonging they need. The church makes a difference. People are wondering, what do I do? How do I cope? How do I heal? I feel depressed, I feel suicidal, my marriage is falling apart, I don't know what to do with my teenagers, I don't know which way is up. And the church, the bride of Christ, offers people a place to belong, to heal, to find hope. In fact, I want to show you some scripture that is pretty meaningful and powerful to me. Proverbs 31. If you've been around the church world for a long time, when you think of Proverbs 31, you think of being a godly woman. And if you've ever read the standards, it makes me glad not to be a woman, because they're like really hard standards. There's more to this chapter than what you might realize. What's interesting, if you study Proverbs 31 verses 10 through 31, is actually an acrostic poem. Each of these 22 verses, this is fascinating, each of these 22 verses start with a consecutive letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Imagine if there was 22 letters in the English alphabet. The first verse would start with A, the next one with B, the next one would be C. And it's describing this godly woman. Like I might say for Amy, my bride, she's awesome, and she's beautiful, and she's Christ-like, A, B, C. Each consecutive verse of these 22 verses start with a consecutive letter of the Hebrew alphabet. In other words, the perfect bride would exhaust all the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Now, we know this, that whenever you read God's word, all things point to Christ. Jesus is the main character of the Gospels. He's the main character of the epistles. He's the main character of the Old Testament. All things point to Christ. What do we know the church is? The church is the bride of Christ. What if Proverbs 31 isn't just a chapter to make women feel guilty? Because they're not all that. What if chapter 31 is a picture of the husband, Jesus, and his bride, the church? I'm gonna read you some verses out of the TPT translation, the Passion Translation, which is admittedly more of a devotional. Some people say it's not literal, but it's completely beautiful. And what I'm gonna do is every time it talks about the bride or the woman, I'm going to put in the word church. And every time it talks about the husband, I'm gonna replace it with Jesus and see if that were the case, what would it say to us? I'll give you an example. Proverbs 31 verse 10, this is how it reads. Who could ever find a wife like this one? She's a woman of strength and mighty valor. She's full of wealth and wisdom. The price paid for her was greater than many jewels. Now I'm going to substitute Christ and the church, and it would go like this. Who could ever find, not a wife, but who could ever find a church like this one? Christ's church is full of strength and mighty valor. The church is full of wealth and wisdom. The price paid for the church was greater than many jewels. You see what we're doing here? Let's read on. The church searches out continually to possess that which is pure and righteous. The church gives out revelation truth to feed others. Oh, this is powerful. Verse 18, the church tastes and experiences a better substance, and her shining light will not be extinguished no matter how dark the night. She, the church, is known for her extravagant generosity to the poor, for she always reaches out her hand to those in need. Watch this. Her husband, Jesus, is famous and admired by all. Even her works of righteousness she does for the benefit of her enemies. I'm gonna edit this next verse a bit. There are many valiant and noble ones, but you have ascended above them all. Popularity can be misleading, and followers and wealth and worldly clout is vain and so quickly fades. But the church, the bride of Christ, lives in wonder, awe, and the fear of the Lord. She will be praised throughout eternity. The church, 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 the church. People are searching, and the church offers hope, healing, and the belonging that they need. The church. I'm optimistic. God used the church to change my life. Jesus said, I'll build the church. We're getting stronger in the middle of this opposition. People need the church. If I could be real transparent with you, in the early season of the changes in the world, I became really discouraged, unlike I'd ever been before. At first, I was disoriented. Then I was discouraged. Then I was depressed. Wondering, have the last 25 years of my life building, has that gone in vain? Will we ever have anything back special? Will the church ever be the church again? And what I found is that there are defining moments in your life, and you rarely know when you're in the middle of one of those moments. You generally don't know until you look back at that moment. Is that right, Pastor Mike? In your life, how many times? You don't know in the moment, but you look back and say, oh, that was a defining moment when God gave us the faith or God gave us the wisdom or whatever. And I was actually in the middle of one of those moments when I recognized it was a defining moment. It was in early May when churches in our part of the world still could not meet. And we had no idea what was to come. And we had been planning on opening up 2 new churches. We were gonna break ground on full-blown, expensive churches in new states. And we sat in a meeting. So what do we do? Because everybody I knew was shutting down anything like that because things were too unstable, too uncertain. No one would be crazy enough to break ground on a church in the middle of a global pandemic. We don't know if anybody's gonna come back. We don't know what's gonna happen. And we sat there and we prayed, and all of us looked up with tears in our eyes, and I knew it right then. It was one of those moments. It revealed what we believed. And we all said, put the shovel in the ground, break the dirt, and let the church be built. Why? Because I believe people need the church. I have faith for it when no one was gathering. What are we? We are faith-filled, big thinking, bet the farm risk takers. We will never insult God with small thinking or safe living. That's why I'm not afraid anymore. And I'm not depressed, and I'm not discouraged, and I'm not holding back. In fact, I'm so not. I did some research in the Bible just to find out when the Bible said not. And I want to show you just some verses of why we should not be afraid and not be discouraged and not give up. I'll show you a few verses that have not in the Bible. Here's what I know. An angel appeared at the birth of Jesus, and the angel said, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news with great joy." Why did Jesus come? I'll tell you why he did not come. He did not come for the healthy, but he came for the sick. He didn't come for the righteous, but he came for some people like you and some people like me. He came for the sinners. I'm told by God's word that we are not of this world. Jesus said, do not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Jesus does not lead us into temptation, but he delivers us from evil. He told us, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, but store them up in heaven. We're told that we walk by faith and not by sight. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. I pray like Jesus, not my will be done, but your will be done. I've got good news for you, and that is this: we're saved by grace and not by works. We do not set our mind on earthly things like social media and like the news, but we set our mind on things above. We do not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time, Pastor, you will reap a harvest if you do not give up. Are we in a battle? Yes, we're in a battle, but our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers and the powers of this dark world, and we will not be overcome by evil, but we will overcome evil with good. We do not belong to those who shrink back and are destroyed, but to those who have faith and are saved. The Lord is not slow in keeping his promise, but he is always faithful. And that's why, church, we will not grieve like the rest of mankind who have no hope. And we will not give up meeting together. How about that, church? Because the Lord is our helper, and we will not be afraid, because not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of God. And that's why we are not ashamed of the name of Jesus and the power of gospel that brings salvation to everyone who believes. We're a lot like those first century believers in the book of Acts who cannot stop talking about what we've seen and heard, because my life has been changed by Jesus through the church. But we have this treasure, Jesus, in jars of clay, to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. We may be hard-pressed on every side, but we're not crushed. We're perplexed, but we're not in despair. Persecuted, but not abandoned. Struck down, but not destroyed. And Jesus, the Son of God, said, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And that's why I'm not discouraged, and that's why I'm not afraid, and that's why I'm not backing down, and that's why the church will not shrink back. And now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we can ask, think, or imagine, according to the power that is at work within us, to him be the glory. Where? In the church and in Christ Jesus through all generations forever and ever. Amen. And that's why, pastors, you should not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time, I believe you will reap the greatest spiritual harvest of your ministry if you do not give up. We are the church. We don't go to a building, it's who we are. It's our identity, and we are spiritual leaders. I would invite you to join me this year at the Global Leadership Summit, where Jesus, the power of the Spirit, will help us lead stronger. And guess what? We don't just lead to a business and bless everyone that does, but we get to lead people into an eternal relationship, and we get to serve the bride of Christ, his church. And that's why I'm optimistic, and that's why I have faith, and I believe your best days of ministry are ahead of you, and I will see you ahead of me at the Global Leadership Summit this year. May you be blessed in your coming and blessed in your going as you build the body of Christ, the church, the church, the church. God bless you guys.